Hello everyone and welcome to the fifth episode of the Commerce DevCast. We'll be talking about the Adobe App Builder. Today we have our host Vitaly, Senior Magento Adobe Commerce Developer at the Carry Company. Hello Vitaly. Alexander, Magento Department Manager at WeConnect DK. Me,
Hello.
Solution Specialist, Software Architect and Partner at Runners Root. And our guest, Alex Lyzun, Commerce Technical Lead at Comrab Reply. Thanks that you joined us.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's a pleasure.
It's a pleasure for us. So, what is App Builder and how do you eat it? What is it about, So, Alex, could you tell us something?
No. Yes, sure, guys. So Adobe Builder historically appeared about 5 years ago, but I guess like most of the people started to hear about it a year ago, maybe a bit more, somebody a bit less. And if say with them with very simple words, the Adobe Builder is another way of extending your Adobe Commerce system. By architectural perspective, it's not linked to Adobe Commerce. Adobe released it as microservice environment for building application for their products. I mean, for sure, we are more from the commerce area. So for us, it's mostly the Adobe Commerce way of extensibility. And Adobe Commerce become the most used tool with a builder by the reason that originally it's built with PHP. By this reason, a builder was produced or like introduced by Adobe. That's a way of extending because Adobe want to go away from PHP from this point of view. I mean, you can imagine all the services built with Java, JavaScript. The one monolith PHP application that suddenly jumped into the tech stack is not fit to this picture a lot. So that's why a builder mostly connected now to Adobe Commerce.
Okay, so original idea was not to build it only for the commerce, but just create some tool that could be used for building various applications, right?
Yeah, correct. Yes, more or less.
And what are the key differences compared to the traditional Magento and Adobe Commerce in terms of development and supporting? Just tell us a few.
I mean, I would say it's even no difference because it's totally different approach of extending. I mean, if you working with Magento Adobe Commerce, you have your monolith which is built on PHP and you creating the new piece of the code and you injecting it into your monolith. In a lot of use cases, you also modify the core files overwriting them, like within your module with some DI dependencies and so on. But in case of a builder, it's like fully another way of working because it's only can rely on API. So it's not affecting the way the original Adobe Commerce Magento application works. It's only communicate with API layers, which provided by Adobe Commerce. That's why when it's appeared first, like let's say 4 years ago, then it has very low rate of extensibility by the reason that Adobe Commerce haven't provided so many APIs outside where you can modify the flows. So you mostly can just read data and then insert some metadata like products, orders, all this stuff. And basically currently it's much widely developed by the reason that Adobe invests in a lot of in also like keeping the monolith system much more extendable. So, I mean, I don't know if you knew they added possibilities to add shipping methods. They added possibilities to add payment methods with APIs, which was not possible before. And again, if you're now talking about a builder extensibility, I mean, shortly, sorry, I maybe moved away a bit from the original question.
That's fine.
But it's fully built with JavaScript currently. It's based on Apache OpenWhisk, which is theoretically can hold any development language. It can also be with PHP if you start your architecture build it on PHP. Adobe just not adding support of it. So they started, because all the products built with JavaScript mostly, or with Java, like Adobe Experience Manager. Then they started with JavaScript as the main language and they keep it like this. Because I heard also in the beginning of the builder that they thought about adding the PHP support. It's never happened. So, and I'm definitely sure it will never happen again. Because they're so wide in this JavaScript development. They have team focused on that. They build in a lot of starter kits and so on. And then going bit more deep in the technology again. So you all got used to the way where you have extension points of Adobe Commerce. You have plugins, you have observers, you have like observers and events. You have DXML, so you can modify the core, you can add a new GraphQL endpoints, new REST endpoints, but you're all doing it within the monolith. In case of a builder, they're trying to provide the same way of extensibility, but with limitation that you're not doing it within the core itself. So you also have events. So for example, you can listen to any events which happen within Adobe Commerce and receive information about these events, an object that's been triggered within Adobe Builder application. You also can modify APIs if you use an API mesh. That's like another abstract layer, or say like another tool of a builder where you can change the API endpoints, add in new endpoints, and so on. You also have the persistent storages, which is not so flexible and not so, let's say, convenient, because it's only key value storage, which is similar to Redis, so you can save the simple objects only. Or you have file storage, which is quite comfortable. It's quite fast, but I never tried it with high scale projects because you're basically working with the files, so you're not working with the tables. Yeah, and that's in short. So basically you, again, to summarize, you build an own application outside of Adobe Commerce, which communicate on API levels only.
Okay. And just to clear it up about the overall general architecture, you're still having Adobe Commerce somewhere. You're still having it running as a monolith application, and you're having a couple layers, for example, API mesh, right, as a proxy between your commerce and applications that you're building, and you could use various things, various techniques to extend the API that Magento already has by modifying the API mesh in order to provide more flexibility and more functionality for your app that is connected to the Adobe Commerce via this API mesh, right?
Yeah, correct. I mean, you also heard, I'm sure, that about Adobe Commerce SaaS, which been released, I don't know, March this year. What's happening there? I have no idea. Like nobody
Okay.
knows. I mean, if you don't, if you will also take in your question Adobe SaaS, I mean, I assume yes, it's still the monolith PHP application, but what I see already, it's very heavily customized from Adobe side. So I guess I cannot call it as customization. I would say now it's a core product for SaaS, right? So it's not about customizations of it. It's more about the final state of this product. But it's like heavily changed. The cut off everything from relating about the content management, like page builder not available. The API endpoints been removed or changed. That was a huge surprise for me on like last week. I was so what is the polite word? Angry about this, but that's totally another story. If you're curious, we can talk about it. But answering your question, yes, if you, in the most cases, you still have the same Adobe Commerce on the background, it can be even on premise, so not necessarily cloud. So it can be hosted by you somewhere, and it's still the system which communicate with a builder. Then.
Okay, cool. And maybe the last question about this topic from my side, and we'll go to the topics, maybe some of them prepared by the guys. The upgradability. I've heard many issues with the upgradability with the monoliths of the Adobe Commerce. I faced them myself. So you're spending quite significant amount of time to upgrade your monolith application, your monolith Adobe Commerce and Magento 2. And one of the reasons I believe that Adobe has moved to the UpBuilder approach with those API mesh and other nets of the separate application was also the upgradability. Is that true, or that's just rumors?
I'm not sure I'm like can answer you 100% correct, but I can tell you my opinion. I guess upgradability was not the main point of Adobe about this. That's a very good benefit, and that's a very good point when you're talking about pros and cons going to a builder. I don't think that was like decision of Adobe, hey, let's make availability easier. I more think Adobe want to keep it as a, like to move everything to SaaS in the end because it's easier pricing model. It's easier to deal with support cases. I mean, you can imagine you have thousands of shops running on-premise installations, even not talking about cloud, where every developer can change it as he wants to. And all problems that customer face or merchant face come into Adobe support because he don't know if it's fault of the team, if it's fault of Adobe product. And for sure, a team will claim, hey, that's a core issue, and Adobe will tell, I mean, no, you install some fancy extension which breaks everything, but you can also imagine amount of resources Adobe need to invest to check this all out, like to be sure that it's not their fault. And yeah, so like on my opinion, they're just trying to make it the same as all other services, have a subscription model, which may allow you to earn a bit more money, but at the same time, you have more control. You like can be sure that it's, let's say, your issue or not your issue, depends on the use cases. So it's like control, I guess it's a correct word here. And upgradability is like a nice bonus for sure. And that's one of the arguments when I also decided if I have to use Adobe Commerce native extension or a builder, because I also tired from updates, honestly. I mean, after 11 years, every new update, like I have a headache and I even don't want to start this point.
Okay, so you do agree that there is a benefit of the UpBuilder approach, that the readability is becoming better, but that was not the initial intention of the Adobe, right?
Yeah, that's what
Okay.
I thought, yeah.
Okay. But the another follow-up question to this one, does it really worth it? I mean, in my opinion, you would spend a bit more time on the development with the approach with the UpBuilder in compared to regular development with extensions in the monolithic application, and you would actually invest more time and hours in order to get this upgradability of the Adobe Commerce, but you would still need to keep up your applications upgraded by your own. So for me, it feels like Adobe just shifted the responsibility from their shoulders to the shoulders of the developers.
Yeah, it forced it. Again, what I always like to say, even if I'm like doing the presentation, then don't come to your manager until Alex says so. Just an opinion again.
I'm the manager, you told me so.
Okay, yeah, okay, good. So yeah, I mean, maintainability is a huge point. And what I see from like working for a long time already with a builder, even if you don't have, honestly, we don't have so many production projects. I mean, we have some which using a builder. I mean, what I also miss in sometimes it's own experience of high load projects, maybe because like we are not so, maybe we are lucky because it's still less headache, but that we don't have a builder which running on 1 million SKUs or whatever. I don't have this experience, but seeing the way of upgrading the module, you working with a builder much easier. I mean, Adobe not changing APIs much. If you change in the core or every Adobe Commerce release core been changed, the new security stuff, new bug fixes and so on, and you need to align always. And another huge problem is third-party providers who also need to align. So when come an update, we need to wait for third-party providers very often that they release a new version, and we cannot upgrade because I don't know, depends on ADN integration, which is critical, and we cannot go further without the compatibility. And then we need to update. So the cost is huge, and in my experience, it's really growing. If I see on a builder, we rely on APIs which not changing. I mean, the REST APIs first version haven't changed for years. There can be some like minor changes, but you mostly don't see them. Means you don't need to update your module if your core application changed, which is very nice approach. And from the core perspective development, I guess for us now, it would take maybe a little longer time to develop a builder. But if you get used to it, it's, on my opinion, the same time or even sometimes faster.
Okay. So you got me here. Yeah, that could be a better solution. I'm starting thinking about it right now. But do you still agree that Adobe somehow shifted the responsibility for the upgradability from their shoulders to the shoulders of the developers of the applications in those app builder? Though it's will be very minimal because we are relying on the APIs. That's true, but still the shift has been made.
I'm not sure, honestly, because maybe I'm not fully understand what do you mean, but Adobe itself, as for me, they reduce responsibility of the developers because you don't care anymore about the core updates. Means you don't need to deal about any third party. Like if you take in the standard component, you have 50 your own developed for all custom features, and then you also have to you have installed modules from vendors, you need to upgrade everything yourself, like fully. Also, on our experience working with a big project, very often we need to deal also with core bugs. And a core bug is basically Adobe responsibility, but we're spending hours to understand it's a core bug and then address it to Adobe. And in a lot of cases, we're fixing it ourselves because customer telling we need it now, and Adobe support ticket waiting, I don't know, to several days to answer, and then 20 days wait for a fix. Means we spending a lot of time. If we now go into the builder approach, it's much easier because we don't need to deal with core bugs anymore, more or less, because we rely on APIs, and if API is not returning what's expected, it's directly we know it's not our issue. Like we're not debugging further, because if the core extension, like core product is clean, there are no customizations, and API not returning what you expected, you directly write into Adobe. So you don't need to waste this time on the product. And then when you release Common, you easily roll it out, checking that module still works, the same as you did before. So you not have more work. The same as you did before, and then you see if everything's fine or not. And from own perspective, as being the developer for a long time, I have a feeling that writing API tests much easier than on all other ones.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a comment on this one,
yeah,
if I
sure.
correctly got your point, Vlad. So you're basically asking with Magento or Adobe Commerce that there are many different ways that how we can extend things. You can create a patch, you can create plugin, you can create preference, you can use API and so on and so on. And the point here that each of these ways has its own weight for a future maintenance, and it's kind of known from experience. Yeah, if you going to modify core files, then probably you'll spend more hours in the next 5 years upgrading Magento. And having this app builder and using only API, you are reducing the ways and as a result, this maintenance weight for a future, because you just have less things to go into the right direction. You can only extend it with apps, you can only extend it with events and so on.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's true. So you have only one way for extending, that's an API, and that's great. But at the same time, you need to keep in mind that you need to support all the NPM packages that you're using, right, in your app. So security things and so on, so on. It's not a super big deal, right? When I played around with the Node.js and tried to build some applications and supported them, it didn't took me so much time as it take when I was developing the Magento 2 extensions and trying to upgrade them. That's true, definitely. But what if you are going to move on from the App Builder ecosystem and building your own application that will be hosted somewhere else? For example, Alexander mentioned that the persistent system, the system for saving the data and accessing the data, is not so good yet in App Builder. And if you want to have something on the side to have the MySQL, right, or MariaDB with a relational database, you need to spin up your own server. I don't know, spin up your own Laravel application and play around things there. And you would need to support it. You would need to keep the server up to date. You would need to keep the MySQL instance up to date. You need to keep the packages up to date, and so on and so on. So that's just an additional server, an additional application that you need to support and think about. And I agree that you don't have any more patches, preferences, plugins. You get rid of that. You have only the API in connection to the Magento, but you got other bunch of things that you need to think about. And that's a matter of time when it will blow up to the bigger infrastructure where you have 20 applications that you need to support because you build them by your own, because there was nothing on the market yet. And you have another 5 servers that are running with a MySQL or any other services that App Builder just cannot handle. And you need to support all of this zoo. That's what I mean.
That, by the way, can be true. That's a valid point. I just think that, first of all, I don't know if you knew, Builder will provide the new persistent storage in near future. They're working on it. It's document-based, so you can basically save much more complex data, or you will be able to save much more complex data, and they will be persistent. So this gap have to be closed. But what are you talking about the new stuff around or in other services? That's a valid point, but it really depends on the use case you're working with. So again, I would say for most of the use cases, it's not an issue. And if this issue is popping up, then okay, your use case may be a bit more complicated than Adobe assumed, or your customer just want to have it in this manner, so you have to deal with it, unfortunately. In looking on a bigger picture, guess it's not the negative side, it's a life that hit you hard. If I'm working with
Okay.
projects, I mean, we also have sometimes that customer come in and tell, hey, I have Algolia search, please make it work. I mean, we have such a use case when the customer can say, I have Algolia search, please make it work with Adobe Commerce. And we started to build Adobe Commerce extension to work with it. And it was not so big a problem because there were already some open source packages available. We can plug it in, start configure and so on. And then they told, hey, I want that the same like rules that I had installed on my external system being applied now here for the search, and that's in another level of complexity. So it took really a lot of time. And let's say if you do the same with a builder, I would see we'll have the same issues there. So again, yes, it really depends on the use cases. On wider picture, I guess that's not the biggest problem.
Okay, I see. Cool. From my side, that's it about the question, what is UpBuilder and how to cook it and eat it, right? Maybe you guys have questions? Alexander, Vitaly?
I kind of have a lot of questions, but I don't know whether those questions are sticking to our agenda because, like, I have mainly concerns, like, because it's completely new technology for me. And as you know, guys, I'm working mostly with B2B clients. And it seems to be like, because, yeah, B2B is something in the most cases is very custom thing because every business is unique. And when you were talking about life hitting hard, it's exactly when it's hitting hard in B2B area. And this is why we actually have Magento, which is super duper customizable and can handle every unique case. So you have like this Lego and you can make anything with this little bricks. You can throw away bricks you don't need and you can use and slightly modify those bricks that you need. And now we have these restrictions with API and so on. So I really curious how good is a builder for
That's a very good question. I mean, honestly, a builder in Adobe Commerce for me, it's even another world within Adobe Commerce. I mean, looking how extension was developed and know the history, how the B2B extension was developed. That's not fully Adobe like piece from Adobe Commerce. It's some like side. Like if you imagine the building, that's a small part of the building which usually like stay in a site, which is still Adobe Commerce. True. Yes, Adobe B2B use cases for us also it's very like high customizable because usually when businesses are coming, they already run in business for years. They have working processes they cannot change or they don't want to change. In most cases that they just cannot change. And Adobe Builder, I mean, have a look. The good point that Adobe Builder is not must-have. I mean, you don't need to use it. You need really to decide on use cases if you need it or if it's fit, and what are the benefits of using it, and if there are any benefit at all for your particular use case. For sure, there is a SaaS, which is also B2B. And that's, I guess, totally another story because also on my own experience, we've seen requirement that B2B bring into us. SaaS will not fit always in B2B. I guess will not fit in most cases, at least for now. And yeah, so I mean, if you're starting to work with B2B cases, you really need to consider if it's worth to use a builder, if it makes sense, what are the benefits, what are the cost efficiency? Again, the same point of upgradability, how deep your customization is within the core, and if it's possible to do a lot, because even I guess API level of B2B is not so good as API level of the standard B2C. Yeah. So maybe if you have any like more detailed question, I can answer it. But yeah.
Yeah, but this answer really makes sense. And I also think that it's crucially important to have automated test, more particular end-to-end test on the system. Is there a way to organize them on UpBuilder? Like is there any separate environment when you can run pipelines and test everything? Not only API test, but like end-to-end test when you go through users and check everything.
Yeah, I mean, what's nice from a builder perspective that every application you're building has unlimited amount of environments you can enable. So basically, you can have production, staging, dev one, Vitaly Boyko dev. I just want to try it, and so on. So yeah, you can create as many environments as you want to, and you can also test them out separately. I mean, you can create the API coverage for your application. I mean, it's just a JavaScript application, so that's not an issue. You can build on the end-to-end test. You can have customer front-end for your application. You can send it to your friends that he tried and so on, which is without affecting the production environment.
But, does it have support of some kind of pipelines? I mean, usually, when we are arranging some work, that we are introducing some code, and we're expecting that there are some test suite that will be run on this code, and we'll check if its tests are still okay or something is broken and we need to have it.
It depends on what you build. I mean, if you start Builder from scratch, no. There are like no native part, but there are CI/CD processes for the GitHub integrations, which will roll it out, which will test it, which will deploy it, which will, I mean, can also theoretically, I don't know, open the front end and click through if there are any like front end components to see that they all render it in there. But that's all like you need to integrate within your GitHub or GitLab. I mean, natively, like there's no package you can just install and that's your CI/CD. What I did, I used the existing, there's like integration starter kit. The integration starter kit checkout one and mesh one, but I guess only integration has CI/CD there. So yeah, that's some work you need to do. I guess on this point, it's still a bit fresh. So there are no unified solution. Even we're working with a builder for a long time. Even in-house, we don't have yet CI/CD running normally. We had no time to basically do it.
Okay, so if that's it with the questions, we can move on to the following topic. Just a brief
I still
You still have a question?
something to add.
Yeah, sure.
It's more kind of not a question, but I am like preparing for this podcast, made some kind of research, so just want to share it. And as Alex has more experience than all of us combined, then I allow you to interrupt me at any moment. I just tell that I'm telling something wrong. But yeah, the thing, I just try to find like if there anything that's kind of similar already available in the market, and I'm trying to figure out like what the unique proposal of Adobe in this case when they're introducing App Builder. And I'll start a bit from the kind of backstory. So it's end up that it's good fit for composable commerce solutions when you have a separated layers, when you have a separated headless storefront, then you need to have some layer of API orchestration, or you can call it API mesh, and then you have something that you build for your solution, and then you also have some third parties that you use, and with all this you finally can sell something to your final customers. And the point here that App Builder is unique in the way that Adobe is provide you with all other tools that you need to build your solution. So Adobe provide you with a storefront, Adobe provide you with API mesh, Adobe provide you with infrastructure, Adobe provide you with environment where you can place and host your applications. Moreover, it provides you with a marketplace where you can go and select already available applications and install into your kind of solution that will be run only for you, and you have a separated instance. And this is quite unique because I'm kind of checked these different e-commerce platforms, and I was really surprised that there's nothing similar. Like if you're talking about Shopify, for example, you can have a separated hosting for, Shopify itself is a cloud. Yeah, it's a SaaS, it's a hosted cloud. You don't need to care about it. You can host separately the storefront with their oxygen system and their hydrogen storefront. And you also can have Shopify functions, but these functions are something similar, not to App Builder, but rather to Adobe Runtime. And you can use them not for everything like you can do it with Adobe Runtime. It's only limited for some cart and checkout options. So this kind of extension points. There's also nothing similar to API mesh. You can use something called API proxying when you add your own endpoints, but there's nothing that you can arrange it in this flexible way that Adobe allows you. With BigCommerce, it's pretty similar to the Shopify, excluding that BigCommerce doesn't even have options to introduce your new endpoints to API. And the same happens with Salesforce. Similar happens with Elastic Path, and also surprised that for commerce tools, you basically just for all of these tools, you need to build it on your own. You just need to select the different technologies from different vendors, then combine it, and then you can receive something that you can use for a composable commerce. And here, the biggest advantage of Adobe that you basically receiving everything from the single vendor. Maybe not so perfect, maybe not so kind of flexible yet, but this is really awesome that you can just use all these technologies from a single brand.
I would totally agree because I haven't worked with Shopify point, but I touched it about 10 years ago. Like I with the team built even like extension for the Shopify. We tried to like small history lesson. We tried to build a quoting for Shopify because you know B2B has a quoting functionality and it was already there like on the Adobe Commerce. Shopify didn't have it. We said, oh, okay, cool, that's some feature which Commerce has, but Shopify doesn't. And we tried to build it. And at those times, we need to do everything ourselves. Like we need to have own hosting, own development. So when the customer went to the backend, they clicked quoting, they opened our page of our URL even, and we like have to do everything there. And after 10 years, it haven't changed, I have a feeling. Like it's still the same. So they're not much developing in this direction.
And there's also the tricky part that you are responsible for holding data of all the kind of merchants that are using your functionality. It's not like you created something and then they can use it and install it in their environment, that you're responsible for everything.
Sorry, Vitaly, you already put your hand down, right?
Yeah, I just wanted to make one remark because regarding quoting, because it's a fun part for me. Historically, I worked on 5 projects that required to have quoting, and on each of these project, quoting was has different requirements than built-in quoting. So, and every time we have to implement everything from scratch, even with Adobe Commerce or like Magento. It's so funny. Like every time it was different.
Yeah, I mean, Alexander, like adding to your point, like we built this quoting functionality, and like we charge customers monthly. So when they subscribe in, they have access like to the service. If subscription is end, the Shopify cut off themselves this feature, so they don't have it available anymore. And then one day we stopped to maintain it, and we like closed the server. We removed the application from the Shopify, so like that nobody else can buy it. But those people who've been subscribed to that, we received money from them for next year still, and nobody ever complained. And Shopify is not like haven't control it.
Sounds like a good business model, you know.
Yeah, I hope it's not like this anymore, honestly. But who knows? Who knows? I mean, not sure.
Okay. So, are we ready to move on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's rock.
That's a yes sign. Let's rock. So, to sum up, Adobe thought that's enough of PHP. We want a bit of Java, even if it's JavaScript. And they started moving on from the monolith to the multiple services architecture. I would not call it microservices. I would call it multiple services architecture to decrease their maintainability and to get more hours spent on developing real things instead of figuring out whose fault is it. Is it a third-party extension or is it the Adobe fault? There are still some concerns from our side, but there is less and less of them after every podcast that we are making, especially after Alex.
I'm waiting for the time when everybody will start to blame me. Oh my God, I'll quit that. Sorry, guys.
I really like the idea that we will be only relying on the API, though I don't really like the idea that I would have a zoo of a lot of applications, but I don't think that would be such a big a problem in compared to the zoo of the third-party extensions that we are using in our monolith application. But we'll see. at least based on your experience, Alex, it's not a big of a deal. So
I have one point to it,
Yeah.
if I may. That's maybe like from experience how we are working with the customer, how we are approaching them, and also maybe experience for others who in the past really liked to modify the core heavily of Adobe Commerce. So when the customer approaching us, we doing not only development. So development, that's a cool stuff, but the most critical part of it, it's a consultant. And when they come into us and tell we need this, this, and this, and this, and this, and please build it, a lot of agencies taking this like an action points and starting to do it. What we try to do, we try to consult and ask, do we really need this one? I mean, this small feature, I don't know, like take Adobe Commerce newsletter subscription or whatever, which is like deprecated there, which nobody really using, but customer tell, I need this newsletter split on customer groups or whatever. Then come on, this small feature costs you 10 days of development and it'll bring you zero business value. Like, do you really need it? And we try to consult it in a way that to keep them as standard as possible, especially for the newcomers who just started with a commerce at this point, that they're not overcomplicated. MVP have to be simple and as close to core as possible, and then you can add topics on top.
I do totally agree with your point. And we are actually slowly moving to the topic number 2. What merchants would find UpBuilder a good fit for them? So that's actually the question for the consultancy agency. Please consult me. Am I find the app builder as a merchant a good solution, or it will gonna eat up all my budget? And yeah, so what are the criterias? Why should I choose the app builder as a merchant instead of, I don't know, Major.as or Magento 2 open source?
I think we can consider like a different profile of merchants. For example, that profile number 1, like I am a merchant who has a website on a WordPress. I'm having 10 orders per day. Should I go to the Adobe and buy Commerce and use UpBuilder? Then other one that I already have Adobe Commerce. It's heavily customized, and I'm considering to change something. Like, should I consider UpBuilder? And if yes, that's what I should think about. And the third one, like I'm using Shopify, but now I'm planning to change to Adobe Commerce, like starting from scratch. What it should be a benefits and what should I look at?
I guess we are moving.
I'm a WordPress guy. Tell me, should I go there or not?
I guess we are moving a bit away from a builder. So we're starting like basics of consultant. If you have 10 products and you have a WordPress, go to Shopify. You don't need Adobe Commerce, honestly. You even don't need Major.as. I really have a feeling that if you compare Shopify with Major.as will lose. Sorry, guys who are working there. Because Shopify, for the really small amount of money, doing quite solid service for you. So you have environment, you have everything set up. You can just, if you, I don't know, doing some homemade jam, you can directly start to sell it without a lot of investment. You need maybe 1 hour of configuration. If you're talking about bigger customers, that's already depends. Alexander, which second group you said? Can you?
I already have Adobe Commerce, and there's like a lot of customizations, and I'm considering if I should look into UpBuilder, or my team should look into UpBuilder, or we should just keep as it is. But I should look at to make a decision.
If you already have an Adobe Commerce, means you already have established product, and you honestly, I would not recommend let's move to a builder. Makes no sense. If you have already everything working, it's only if I have a use cases that we have a customer who has the module which every update costs them up to 20 days. And I would say, okay, guys, that's piece of code which you can rarely move to a builder by the reason that you don't need any more 20 days to update.
I'm sorry, you said piece of code, but not piece of... Okay, please go on.
That's what I mean.
I mean, fair enough. Yes, so a piece of code which have to be moved to a builder because that's very valid use case. Because 20 days every update, you can imagine the maintenance cost of it. But for a builder, it will not be like that because you will rely on APIs again and all the same topic. And the functionality of this module is fully independent. I mean, I can just tell it. It's generating the nice PDFs for the customers because Adobe Commerce don't have a normal PDF templating. So there is custom extension bought on Marketplace, I don't know, like years ago. with generating nice templates. That's something you can fully move away by the reason it's fully independent from core functionality. It can purely rely on APIs because you just need an invoice ID and then pull invoice metadata by API, and then you can build everything out of the box. And yeah, that's one use case. Then you have to think, okay, if you have already running projects, then you want to, if you think in go to a builder, means you have some change requests, right? So if it's a new feature, always thinking how much it's independent from the core functionality. Again, like this example I gave you, if you need to export something, import something, if it's something where you don't need to override a lot of functionality and you can fully rely on API, I would do it with a builder. The reason, if you own Adobe Commerce, mean you on Adobe, and you will move then to, I mean, Adobe is pushing SaaS not so hardly, but I can believe that in some time they will convince your customer without your intention that it's cheaper, easier. So they will tell, okay, it's twice cheaper than you pay in the license for Adobe Commerce now. Customers say, okay, twice cheaper, that's, I don't know, 30K per year, approximately, random number. Multiply on 10 years, you're already on a big number. So they will start to think about it. Means you will have much more work and they need to pay much more because they need to migrate everything. That's one point. Another point is load of the system. A lot of those modules have a big impact on the performance, and the more you add in them, the more impact is. If you move something away and rely on APIs, the impact is much smaller. I hope I answered like this question. I know, Alexander, you have like one more last level, I guess.
Yeah. We had the third one.
The third one is just I have another platform and I'm considering to move to Adobe Commerce Cloud, and then I'm considering if to do it in a more traditional way.
Per day?
Let's assume this is some mid-tier client, like, or even like upper mid with I don't know, for example, 5,000 orders per day.
I mean, again, that's a like basic of consultant, and I don't know honestly, like not much familiar. No, wait, it's even not consultant, it's even sales phase. It's even before, because you need to sell it first, you know. Then you need to talk about your turnover, if the Adobe Commerce fit at all by financial point. Because Adobe themselves, they also can make a decision not to sell you for the product if they see you cannot maintain it within a year. So if you have turnover 200K per year and product costs 50K per year, that's like makes no sense, right? Like not at all. And yeah, I mean, moving to Adobe Commerce from another system, that's a good question. Depends. I mean, if we will move to technical side, as we are mostly all technical guys here, the one of the biggest point, again, amount of customization you have. And then I would basically give an answer of Alexander, who very nicely compare Shopware with Adobe Commerce and all other like BigCommerce and all other platforms. If you have all this included in your package and you have possibility like to customize it easily, don't think about maintenance cost and so on, that's a very good valid point moving to Adobe Commerce as a platform. Another point is another services. Adobe have tons of services around. There's like analytics, Target, Marketo, so advertisement stuff. Also some AI integrations currently, new storefront. That's all very valuable solution if you want to grow your business, which another platforms cannot give you. They're also like, I was on some presentations in the past, or there's some AI-based content generation for your pages, for example. You tell them, hey, there is a product, make me some nice advertisement of it for the homepage because I have the sales campaign, and it's creating you the banners, nice images, text, and so on. So quite well. And then you have analytic tools which can analyze this like generated content and then align it, for example, if the sales go better or good. That was on our last demo from May, I guess, which I guess still in development, but that's very good use cases you can work with. And that's why Adobe ecosystem by the products, maybe not by the people yet, but already by the, I mean, we can touch this point, by the way, the ecosystem of Adobe from people perspective in compared to Adobe to Magento. But yeah, so there, I honestly believe that some salesperson can answer you better. So you will decide to sell it now or to buy it now, even if you don't have any shop yet. So
okay, so basically,
that's why I'm asking you, not a salesperson, you know.
Yeah, so basically, if merchant is interested in other Adobe services, then it could be a really good match, or if they can see a value from other services. But let's talk a bit more about the technical part. So, like, what kind of as you already mentioned, that it's really good fit for customizations that you can just add to the Adobe Commerce, like something that's like you need to generate PDF. You don't need to change anything inside the platform. But would it mean that if I need to customize like how platform works right now, that's how Adobe Commerce works out of the box, then UpBuilder could be really a bad choice and better to decide to do it with another PHP extension?
Yes. That really depends on what you want to build, and if basically a builder is at all the tool which can do it, because there are still a lot of limitation within Adobe Commerce which you cannot customize. Like imagine you need to set up the custom price for the product during the checkout process from outside. There are no APIs which allow you to do it. If there would be APIs, they would be directly misused, and you can just set yourself a zero price and so on. So that's something you cannot affect. I'm sure the Adobe working on this point because it's mostly asked, I guess, for now. But there's still a lot of limitation. That's one example where you cannot customize. And if you see that it's too complicated, it's too many dependencies, I would rather go for native extension and compare to a builder. Maybe also another point, by the way, is if you already has existing functionality, which you develop for your customer, and then he asking you to add a new functionality on top of it. I'm not a fan of building a builder application dependencies on Adobe Commerce applications. That's, I found, the bad approach. Maybe even like Adobe team will tell me, no, not really. But I just personally don't like it, because you have two dependencies on a third-party provider. Depending on the core, cool. You're not worrying much about the deprecation. I also had this question to Adobe itself that if they will deprecate anything within the schemas, they will warn you in advance, like several versions before, so you have bunch of time to align it. For sure, as specialists, you need to read the release notes, but that's still part of our work.
Okay. I see we're slowly moving to the topic number 3, how to practically apply UpBuilder, right? And you have shared quite a bunch of information about real-world examples of UpBuilder usage with external serverless integrations and event-based flows. Do you have something to it? Yeah.
Before we move to point 3, I think we could.
We're already there, mate.
Yeah, but we can sum up the point number 2. So I mean, from what I heard, it have a strong feeling that this is some kind of decision that cannot be just easily made by merchant itself. It's more required to a strong technical background and consider it for not even like for a domain or industry, but rather for a specific business. If UpBuilder will be a good choice, including that's what they already have, what's our business requirements, what the business model, and etc. So only the proper discovery process could tell if it's a good decision to go with UpBuilder or just use Adobe Commerce as it is, or combine both approaches.
I would say that's a very nice option to make your brain work, by the reason that on a past, if developer team receive a task, they haven't seen it. They just, let's do it. And they started to develop it. Now you need to plan. Honestly, I believe 95% at this moment still will do the same. But that's like our approach. That's why we're doing this podcast maybe. And also like that Adobe is doing some webinars and trainings to shift this mindset to another direction. So you need to plan first, which make your brain think, and maybe you will come to a better solution of the problem, because I very often saw task received, directly started to develop even without thinking how it will be developed, even for monolith, and then have some problem in end. Now you have to think if you want to build a builder or monolith module, and then only move forward.
Point.
Okay, so we don't have an easy answer here? Everyone wants an easy answer, guys.
Everybody looked for an easy answer.
Come on.
Is it?
Wait, do I have a coin here? So take a coin.
Toss it.
And then if it will fall like on a side, then I don't know, delete everything and go to Plant Tomatoes.
Just go to Shopify.
That's an option.
Yeah, why not? Okay, cool. So we're finally in the topic 3, right? we talked about the real world examples. So let's talk about the maybe example of the theoretical architecture of using UpBuilder as an extension of the Adobe Commerce. I think you've told many things already about that, but let's maybe sum it up somehow for the consultants and the developers so they understand how and why this architecture to be used.
So like idea of a builder, I mean, we already touched it, is composable architecture. And now is the time when Adobe Commerce, it's not anymore the main system. Honestly, with a lot of project, it's some system which is part of the big group. You always have ERPs, CRMs installed, some PIM for data, some price engines, whatever else modules around. So Adobe Commerce is not alone anymore, and it's even in a lot of cases not the main system. And the main idea of a builder also to orchestrate everything around, so to make it works normally within those other systems. So like, as for me, the landscape of architecture, the projects I'm working on, it's changed. It changed in this direction that Adobe Commerce is not the main system anymore. An idea of a builder there in the middle that it orchestrates this, it's extending it in a way that, I mean, you can create an extension, which extend in Adobe Commerce system, but also give some valuable data for another system. So, I mean, I would not say that's like main orchestration point, no, but it's one of the points which work with different APIs, make the other systems talk to each other, extending their functionality and Adobe Commerce functionality, and so on.
Okay.
I have a question. For example, if we have multiple apps in this app builder, can they communicate with each other? Can we transit data like through between them?
Yeah, I mean, from technical side, a builder has web actions and backend actions. So if you're talking about web action, that's a standard API layer, for example. So you can build endpoints, like provide APIs, authorization layer, and so on. So that's the way how they can communicate between each other. Also, you have a backend actions, which more or less some backend functions like Lambda function, which run and do some business logic. Around all this, you have Adobe Runtime, which with eventing system. So you can also, like, they can communicate, let's say, on API level between each other. They can communicate on event level because eventing has also API available. So you can publish, like, application A created action A, it's fired event, and then application B consumed it and made something else. So that's a way how they can work to like communicate to each other.
And then a follow up, because when we also had experience of building extension for Shopify, and there was like one of the requirements that was to arrange independency for requests and retry policies. Like, does Adobe do something like for you, or you still need to take care when you making a design of your solution, considering that the only part of these applications are inside cloud, not external ones?
Yeah, I mean, if you're working with events, there is automatic retry mechanism, like events, webhooks, and so on. If it's not been delivered, it's trying it again and again. Every time, like the bigger gap between the tries, and I guess after 24 hours, it stopped trying. It's cut it off. A builder also provide API for all those events. It means if it stopped to try to send, you still can use, it's called journaling API, where you see everything which has happened within the processing. API is not very comfortable. It's event-based API, means you need to iterate through it. So you can't just like load it, you need to iterate event by event. Yeah, and but still you can use it, let's say, to get undelivered message. For other use cases, you have to do it yourself. I mean, you can technically build a cron job which read the status and so on. So yeah, like a basic coverage is there, which is more sufficient. I hope your system will not be down for more than 24 hours for critical business processes. I wish you that.
I actually have another question. What about the state of these applications? Because I know that, for example, I don't know actually how Adobe runtimes work. Unfortunately, I didn't have a chance to work with it yet. But for example, when I worked with Google Function, that there was an issue of cold start. For example, when you're making a first call on some event handler and this function is not yet started, you probably need to wait for a few extra seconds before it will warm up. So is there similar issue with Adobe Runtime and like with applications in UpBuilder, or there's always some running instance for you that you don't need to have these delays?
Adobe Builder by architecture is stateless, means it's not saving any information about the state, execution, and so on. So you run it, it's called an action, destroyed it. For states, you can use persistent storage for sure. So if you need to send it like statuses, whatever else, state between the activations, you can use persistent storage, but by architecture is stateless. No, it's like run and forget.
Okay, but if I'll receive a call for my application, then Adobe will like raise a new instance for me and will execute the call. Because if we are talking about PHP, it's usually, I mean, PHP is supposed to execute a query and die. But for Node, that you will need to actually run an application, and either it will be running and waiting for requests, or each time it will...
No, it's each time it's run the new one.
Yeah, right. Okay. But could it cause actually performance issues? Because
let me write down. I cannot answer honestly. I don't know.
Okay, it will be interesting to investigate.
Yeah, you need to try it out, Alexander. Integrate it on some very big shop and see what happens.
Production, deploy it prod directly. Don't test
and test that.
Testing is for losers.
Okay, so
I got one little question.
Finally.
Yeah, finally. So how do we organize data deployment in UpBuilder? For example, in Adobe Commerce or Magento 2, we have those data patches. So we have, for example, if you have a task like find and replace in in a lot of product description something, or for example, deploy new CMS page, or I don't know, something related to data. How do we organize it in order to not break teamwork workflow, because you can override someone else's work, so how does it work on UpBuilder?
There are no native mechanism for that. Vlad, stay with us, it's not so bad. You need to do it yourself, unfortunately. I mean, you can create an action that will do the job for you. I mean, you can hold my beer. You can create the folder named data patches. You can create an actions inside for every data page you need to apply. And then you change in your CI/CD pipeline that run all actions within this folder on deployment process. So it's basically very similar what Adobe Commerce is doing. It just has all mechanisms which work automatically. With a builder, you need to do it yourself. If you have a great solution for that, build it, make a GitHub repo from it. I'll start to use it. I'll give you a star.
As we see, there are a lot of trade-offs, and we give away debugging capabilities, data deployments,
Imagine how many trade-offs you had when Magento 2 released.
But I would say there are a lot of benefits. I can count them. For me, for example, when we comparing Magento 1 and Magento 2, Magento 2 is way better. I can tell to the client right away why it's better, because we have dependency injection, we have packages, we don't need to invent wheel anymore.
Okay,
but it feels like with UpBuilder, we getting back to inventing wheel, because we need to develop a lot of custom stuff. Yeah.
But again, when Magento 2 been released, the first months I could not tell it's better than Magento 1. I mean, it's a big learning.
It's not first months for UpBuilder being here, it's years already. Yeah,
but it's been used only, honestly, I even don't know how long. I guess the first extension on Marketplace appeared half a year ago. Yes, for sure, it's 4 years there. And that was always, I'm going nuts. That's come on. I found my article I wrote in 2021 about a builder. Even Adobe guys were surprised about it. But yeah, so that's because with Magento 2, you've been forced. You have no choice. I mean, you had choice tests with Magento 1, but not Adobe, that was Magento. They told Magento 1 will not be more developed. Point. We go in Magento 2. And you had no choice. You need to adapt. You need to work with it. With a builder, it's so soft. They're giving you a bit, here's your one, here's your one, here's your one. And you are not so addicted still, because you still can jump off every minute still.
Yeah, you just compared it to drug addiction?
I
Well,
tried as soft as possible.
you need to pay subscription fee, so
Yeah.
you
And then
depends
you
on it.
cut it off like straight away. I was very polite. I was very eco-friendly while telling that. But you wasted it once. You
Yeah,
wasted
yeah.
it.
So no synthetic drugs, just something regular, you know?
Okay. I don't know if you fixed it afterwards.
Yeah, as Vitaly mentioned, that there are a lot of trade-offs, but for me, it's really sound that there is a gap of community support, because we think that we are talking like the data update in the multiple systems, and what we have right now in like Adobe or Commerce or Magento, the system that apply data patches, is just because, I mean, the one that's something that you can do in the community and recommend it as a best practice, as Alex just did, or you can use that something that framework came with. And in this case, I think that there's really a feeling that, I mean, the community of Adobe Commerce that's using UpBuilder will be always smaller than a community that's use Magento open source. It is for a reason that's for right now, this moment, the entry level for this UpBuilder is much higher, because with with Magento open source, you can just download the free version and start doing it. Even you can release your own extension, can develop it with free software, release it, and publish it on the marketplace. Right now, to do it the same with UpBuilder, you need to be at least a silver technology partner with Adobe, which will require you at least $3,000 per year as per company. For some agencies, yeah, of course, it's not a big deal, but if you are some individual contributor, then that could be a deal breaker for you.
Yeah. You
That's
won't
super
code it with the beer at the evening with the friends, right?
True.
That's very valid point. And yes, it's there. I mean, you have to be partner. You have to be more or less like. I have a feeling that for a lot of they don't see much value because working with open source you cannot use it. So it's really not like a hobby project for you. It's mostly if you're already the partner, means you're already with Adobe Commerce stack, means you will jump in because you want to develop your company and so on and so on. If you are learning, you cannot jump in easily because you need the partner for that. Like I started to learn Magento 1 within a company, but it was like, hey, I mean, let's try to build this with this commerce system. Here, trying is a bad word because you cannot try. You have to pay even for using a builder. I mean, yeah, that's a big issue. But what I like now in community, there is a community, and what I like that Adobe is so I feel a bit like old Magento days when we had a big Slack and we could communicate with any Adobe Commerce architect, hi Igor, who will recommend you a lot of books. But I mean, it's still also like this a bit now because all the team who are working on a builder, mesh, starter kits, they're all available. They're answering you in Slack. I guess Adobe pushing a bit to this direction because they need those adopters and those people jumping in, which feel good, which feel quite good. I'm not sure it will hold like this for long because if the more people working, the harder for them is to answer you because they also have a work to do, not just answer your questions. Yeah, but I guess, I mean, for example, Adobe also, I don't know if you saw, by the way, the Magento Association email, which newsletter, which came out last. I saw there was some post that Adobe is not anymore helping with meetups for Magento. And I have a feeling it's by the reason Adobe providing the user groups worldwide currently, quite a lot of, which is basically the meetup, just another name. And that's the partners maintaining them, the partner and clients, and it's like the similar way. So they providing in Europe, basically in Europe there are no at the moment. It's only like Asia, USA, there are multiple of them around the world. So they're trying to build some kind of community, I would say, around the Adobe products.
My problem was that they're trying to build something new and pushing away the people that was already in this community. So that's the feeling I'm getting. Okay, let's talk about SAD and let's talk about nuances. So I'm sorry for this interrogation that we are making, but I want to know top nuances with the implementation of the UpBuilder and using it in compared to your previous developer experience. Let me maybe start. So I see the one potential issue and nuance that will pop up. It's trying to figure out who's making the trouble in checking out all of those services that are getting communicating and reading shitload of logs to understand who is providing the wrong input or wrong output, right? So that could be an issue.
Yes, I guess like the new area now is how you correctly monitoring everything around. Like a builder, including API mesh, has a very like extensive log forward into New Relic, for example. And they provided like calls, request IDs, instances IDs, action names, and so on. So if you build the correct dashboards around it, you can have very nice monitoring of everything which is going on. And you can create also a very nice alerted system around it. But yes, that's a quite valid point. That could be an issue in the future. I mean, again, you need to have a lot of services and systems running around, and the project have to be quite big enough so you have enough time to invest and to build this stuff around. I guess we still be building here now the best practices about all those points.
And
Yeah,
I'm just thinking because you mentioned New Relic and the API mesh, and the performance of some endpoint in API mesh will be as the worst field that you basically need to retrieve from some API call. And I'm just curious, like, is there any tools that could you help to identify like what the piece of the data, if for example you have some module like, I don't know, product, and you have 3 different or 4 different services that's providing you data for this one, can you somehow identify right now which one is the slowest and where you need to look closer to optimize performance?
That's something I guess I will find out this week, because that's a very good question, which I mean, I know by logs, by, let's say, API mesh forwarding, you can see the traces, you can see where requests are coming. So because usually in mesh, you call in single URL, and a background is doing, as you said, 3 different calls to different APIs. You can see the traces, you can see which data each API receive, but I don't know if you can see the response time. That's something, but by the way, what I will check it. That's a very good point. I'm really curious. And I will, if not, I'll basically write to support of Adobe, like to the Slack, because that's something they can add, I'm sure, because it's not the most complicated part.
Yeah, and it will be very useful, at least
that's something you can see also, that like build a table with response times and see the thresholds, so you can see if something is going wrong. But API mesh is we already start to use it on the projects, and it's also the trade-offs in a lot of cases if talking about the nuances of working. Because let's give you an example. We have front end for PDP page, so product page, and we want to display some delivery information when the product will be delivered, and this delivery information coming from third-party system. For us, logically was first, if you're using the standard products and endpoint, we don't want to make 2 different calls. We just use an API mesh and injecting like delivery node within the standard output of the products endpoint. But the final request will take so long time as the slowest API answer, because you're using multiple services. Then come in the trade-off, because for example, if the product endpoint responds to you within 20 milliseconds, but delivery nodes is, for example, the DHL, we cannot guarantee that it's tomorrow will not start to respond within 10 seconds for request. So the trade-off here looks like we need to build 2 calls still. We cannot use mesh because we cannot guarantee the response time.
It sounds like the same problems that ShipperHQ has, because they kind of have their own API mesh, yes, and they gather like APIs call from different shipping providers, and then everyone is blaming that ShipperHQ is slow, but actually it's not ShipperHQ fault, but rather because of those shipping providers being run in the background.
Can you set some kind of, I don't know, timeout from different services? Because it's a really good point. I mean, that if you're relying on some app that's or some endpoint that's relying probably on some another endpoint, that you often can face a situation that something was broken on this long chain. Can it like?
Oh, so many nice takeaway points. I just will write it down. That's good. That's good. Wait, what is the time? I mean, basically, I don't know if you can control when to stop request after how many amount of seconds.
In curl, you can do that. You have a timeout in curl.
By the way, answering your question, like coincidence, you asked me the question, I decided to write it down, I opened the Sublime and I see directly the API mesh output of log forwarding, which I used before. And there's a response time of API calls.
Cool.
So that's your answer, right?
Yeah, thank you.
But yeah, controlling the APIs, that's also a good point. So, and another nuance, if Vlad, coming back to your question, is really the APIs availability. If you can cover everything with APIs which are available there, because like we try not to extend APIs by the reason that we know a lot of customers of us will go to SaaS, or they will make a decision for going to SaaS. I mean, for sure, if we have to, we're doing it. But yeah, so that's like if the API is not available at all, you high probably cannot use a builder just by the reason that you cannot use API. With API mesh, you can create a new APIs, means like you're not doing the original like modification of the system. But again, if you're talking about Adobe Commerce, to get data from somewhere, you need some kind of API level, no other way.
So you could play around with what you already have in order to combine it and compose it to the one API, but you cannot add something new on the top of that.
Yeah. What we did one time to speed up the process, by the way, maybe in interesting use case. So we needed to have the country added to the GraphQL output. So like just country code. So we have ID, for example, we had only ID, but we needed to have a label. But label was not provided by API, only ID. Don't know why. I mean, maybe just a mistake by APIs. I mean, not everybody perfect. An idea was we can call API which deliver you ID and code, and then map it. But the much faster was just to create a like local resolver, and then put all this just in a file like a list,
Hard-coded.
and deploy together with mesh. So you can make a resolver and then just deploy it together with mesh, and it will start work very fast because it's already deployed there and it's just getting the information. So you're basically not calling any additional APIs.
Okay.
And country list is not changing too much.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. They're the same,
Yeah,
actually.
very good point.
Okay, that's interesting. Those are the interesting nuances and the things that you mentioned. I really find it potentially hard to figure out the logging system because that would require another level of log reading skill and playing around with the Grafana dashboards and other things, but that's doable, definitely. And the what really makes me sad that we're limited by the APIs that are already in Adobe Commerce, and that's not always optimal. But yeah, if you're not planning to move to the SaaS, why not? You can extend them.
yeah, that's a very, I mean, honestly, I would also think so. I mean, we still will get a new project and we still will do the core extension just by the reason that, I mean, also the marketplace availability, it's a very huge factor. I don't want to develop some piece of functionality which I can buy for $100 and just install it and know that, okay, this vendor, for example, is okay to use. I mean, even if it's not okay to use, come on, $100 will save you a lot of time and you can change it as you want to and make it works nicely.
That's definitely true. And how many extensions right now in a UpBuilder marketplace?
9.
Okay.
So this also creates a
Okay.
good opportunity that someone can be
And how-
the first.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, you guys, you could cut it off if you want to. There are 9 extensions there, 8 of them free, and 1 of them is paid, and you can guess the extension provider. The single one, the only one out of all, it's paid there, and it's from ours too.
Yeah, but again, I mean, this what I actually mentioned. That's, for example, if you want to build something and want to learn something, you need to pay $3,000 and publish some extension for probably free, because what the chance somebody will buy you.
Yeah, but I mean, it really changes because like we have modules built and they're like, by the way, that's another nuance. It's an authorization layer when you build in the modules. If you want to build it for yourself, for your particular project, it's easy because you know to which system it will talk. If you want to build it more unique, you don't know to which system it will talk. You need to take care about authorization layer, and Adobe SaaS and Adobe Commerce has a different authorization layers. So Adobe SaaS using EMS from Adobe. So you're using Adobe logins, and Adobe Commerce, you all know. And means you need to cover both of those compatibilities with a single module if you don't know the target system of your module. For example, if you want to put it on a marketplace, because there is no separation and you need to be compatible with both of them. And that's basically one of the nuances when you develop in such a module for marketplaces.
That's something that probably should be unified. I mean, that sounds tricky and weird.
It is tricky, by the way, and it is. I mean, I know why it's done, and I believe it will not be unified just by the reason that you have on-premise setup. And if you will next Adobe Commerce release for like non-SaaS one, you will change API layer authorization. Nobody will be happy for sure. So you need to work with both of them. I mean, what you need to unify between SaaS and PaaS, that's like a platform. You need to stay consistent. Okay, let's talk about bad stuff. As I'm not working for Adobe, I can blame them a bit. But I found out last week that GraphQL endpoint for get products information from Adobe Commerce is different for PaaS and for SaaS.
Really? Okay, so those are APIs. They should be the same. I could imagine the authorization process could be different, but the APIs.
Yeah, they're different, and that hit me so hard. That's like you cannot imagine. We have a module which rely on API, like on products and point fully. And I mean, the reason why they did it, it's only clear to them. I know technically why it's happened, but I don't understand the reason. Technically why it's happened because they fully replaced catalog service with catalog service. So they're not saving any more product data in Adobe Commerce at all for SaaS. They're fully saving it in the SaaS solution. Means they just remove the native products endpoint and forwarded everything through the catalog service. So even if you call in Magento currently, and by the way, the URL of SaaS for GraphQL is now different. So before it was just a URL/GraphQL. Now they have like node name, which prefix backend, which go you to the admin. But if you change the backend to admin to API, it will forward you to GraphQL API. So it's not anymore slash. It's like part of the URL, which basically I assume it's not routing directly to usual Adobe Commerce. It's routing to kind of mesh, which creating you the single entry point. So I guess that's why they maybe not even cut off the product endpoint. They just removed it from schema and added and renamed catalog service endpoint to products endpoint of Magento, but the body is fully different. If I'm building a builder application to maintain two schemas, come on, guys.
So basically no version 1 API, no version 2, you just have a separated endpoint and need to support both if you're building your app.
Of them. And that's crazy. That's crazy. Because if they extended the REST API for Adobe Commerce, they added V2 there. I never saw it. After like 11 years working with Adobe Commerce, I always ask myself why they created V1 if like no V2. Like now I see. So they added V2 for new endpoints, but not for GraphQL. GraphQL they just routed through mesh and removed the endpoint. That was, oh my God.
I'm a little bit afraid of
I had
such
to tell
things.
it.
You know, I had bad memory from the situations when Adobe released the patch releases and introduced the API changes and so on and so on. And that's actually happening right now, but on another level. Not really a fan of such changes.
But getting back to the good thing that they stopped doing it. So
they stopped doing it in a code base of the monolith and started doing it in SaaS, right?
well, but they probably also stop doing it in future.
But you know what? Before you were alone with your problems. Now everybody is together. Everybody has the same problem because you're in the south.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we had a really good conversation, really good speech from you, Alex, about how good is UpBuilder, and we tried to prove that it's bad, but I think we a bit failed. There are still nuances, right? There are still pros and cons, and things needs to be considered, but it sounds to be pretty good too. And yeah, thank you that you just took this interrogation from us and handled all the questions.
Always
I really
welcome.
appreciate that.
Always welcome. And I'm now just thought after you said that maybe I'm doing the bad job. If everybody thinks it's so good, Adobe will decide it's so good and they will stop develop it so good. So maybe I need to be more critical. Then maybe Adobe will be pushed. So okay, we need people who will tell that's a piece of and then maybe yeah, to like you need to say something bad to improve it and make it better.
Yeah, that's true, but that's a good foundation. There are still a lot of things to improve, definitely, but
For
that's a
sure.
good
It's too
foundation, a
fresh.
good shift. It's too
Even after
fresh.
4 years, it's too fresh technology to be stable and like reliable on 100%. You still like need to go this path, and I guess it will be longer than Magento 2 path. Maybe the same. I mean, there was basically several years for full stability, or let's say, of Magento 2 platform. I guess here it's have to be the same, but you need more people to be involved to make it stable. If it will stay like this for last 4 years, that was only like, I don't know, 10 people through the world who use a builder, it will not be so good pace anymore because you need more people.
So that would be good if Adobe will lower down this threshold, right? And make sure that some individual contributors could jump in and try it out.
But good, like, no, to this, I know that you can contact Adobe directly if you're an individual contributor and they will do something for that. So that's not like a public program that you can just start with it. No, because it's still limited under the Adobe hood. But you can contact Adobe guys, even in Slack, and they will reach you and they will organize somehow that you get access.
One
But the
Adobe
best,
guy already reached me out. He's head of marketing of the product in the European area. I just wrote an
Try to sell
article.
it to you.
No, mate. I wrote an article about the questioning: is it cool to go with a pass, right, with Adobe Commerce on the cloud for the customers, for the merchants? And he reached me out in the comments uh, under this article and started pushing out that I'm wrong, and started talking about the SaaS product of his. So that was a bit awkward.
back to Alex's point, so the best entry point if you want to try a builder, but you are, for unfortunately not working for an agency that has access to it, you just join the Magento community Slack and trying to find some guy from Adobe and ask if
Correct.
there any
I mean, just go to a builder
way.
channel. It's, I guess, the most used channel currently, and just write a public message, and then I hope somebody will just come back to you.
Thank you.
Shit, I really feel that I was too optimistic. Oh, I need to have some, some something bad on this. I mean, okay, I told about the product's compatibility. So, yeah. Okay, one more critic to Adobe. I mean, what are they missing? They missing a reality from perspective that they developed something, but they're not working so much with real projects as we are. And what they think is good for real projects, not always matching the reality what is good for real project. That's like for this product standpoint is one example, and I'm sure there are much more examples. Which again come into the situation that they need us by the reason that if we try, implement, and use it, we can do it better by giving like feedback.
You're totally right. I think that it was the same with Magento and back in the days with just Adobe Commerce. That's you need to have a strong feedback from community actually to align your vision and see the reality.
I had once a call with the guys from Adobe about the Magento 2 upgradability, and I just figured out that they have designed the Magento 2 and the upgrade process and the idea how we should develop things in totally different way as we have done that. Like not totally, but a bit different, but this difference was big enough in order to cause the troubles. But the thing is that their vision was a bit out from the reality. Yeah. So things needs to be adjusted sooner than later, right? And the better it will be sooner. Yeah.
This happens because the main problem you solve shapes the product, right? And in this case, the main problem was to get married, like to make Magento married with Adobe infrastructure, and then we make enough benefits for clients. So this is why it's kind of, yeah, you will cut it down.
No,
I
I'm
think it's
actually will cut nothing from this podcast. Even my first try to represent everyone, I will not cut it down. So I'm sorry, guys. it
I
will
will
be
cut
as
it
it
out.
is.
I will help you. I'll help you. I just tired already. I'm sorry. Like I was tired before, prior to this. Now I kind of even more tired.
By
But
the way, we already have 1.5 hour
yeah,
recording.
this is what I
I think
wanted
that
to
we should
say.
write up.
Yeah.
It's a lot of things still to be discussed, but the topic is huge, and I think we've covered many things that would be interested for the consultants, for some of the developers, and the merchants for choosing what to use and should they pay money for that or move on with other platform. In case there will be any questions, I think they can find out Alex or any of us and try to message us, and hope we're not gonna block them.
Yes, easy. I'm quite active on Slack, so you can find me there. Or if okay, I need to do advertisement. If you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, then please do it.
Yeah, we'll leave a link to your YouTube channel.
Thanks.
On our podcast.
And you can just search by my name, which is written under my face here, so you will find it.
Okay. Cool then. So thank you for joining us, and ciao.
Thank you very
Bye.
much,
Thanks
guys.
for having
Thank
me.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Alex.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.